Massive stones scattered across ancient landscapes hold a silent, hidden order. A sophisticated language of geometry was the true power behind these megalithic masterpieces, a language used to encode cosmic principles and command human societies. By the end of this exploration, you will be able to see these monuments not as ruins, but as active diagrams of a forgotten science that still influences our world today. How did prehistoric builders achieve such impossible precision without modern tools? And what secret knowledge about the universe did they bury in plain sight within these stone circles and temples? What does it mean for a simple shape to hold such immense power over the human mind? This intuitive grasp of proportion was not a vague artistic impulse, but a precise and repeatable science. The geometry of power is the term we use to describe the deliberate use of specific shapes, ratios, and spatial arrangements in these ancient sites to express a profound authority. This was a language that spoke of spiritual belief and a direct connection to the cosmos. As the writer John Michell proposed, these geometries were seen as a mirror of a divine order, a celestial blueprint. The structures themselves became instruments designed to channel this perceived universal harmony into the human world, and in doing so, exert a form of control over the society that gathered there. This system relied on a sacred toolkit of forms: circles for the eternal heavens, squares for the stable earth, and triangles pointing toward the realms beyond. They even encoded irrational numbers like pi and the golden ratio into their stonework, numbers they believed held an inherent active power. So how does the very shape of a building influence the people within it? A circle with no beginning and no end naturally draws a community together, fostering a sense of unity and shared experience. A vast square or rectangular space, by contrast, can create a clear hierarchy, directing attention toward a single focal point, much like a throne at the end of a long hall. The builders were not just stacking rocks, they were programming the experience of space itself. To bring this powerful geometry to life, they needed more than just grand ideas, they needed revolutionary tools. These master masons began with the most basic of tools, a length of rope and a few wooden stakes. With a central peg and a taut cord, they could inscribe a perfect circle upon the earth, the first and most fundamental shape in their geometric language. But their work was far from simple. To create the complex patterns we see today, they employed a system of standardized measures. Researchers such as Alexander Thom identified a recurring unit, which he termed the megalithic yard, approximately 2.72 of our modern feet. This same unit of measurement appears in stone circles separated by vast distances, pointing to a shared and communicated body of knowledge, a universal standard for sacred architecture. This was not guesswork, it was applied science. Astonishingly, these ancient builders were using Pythagorean triangles, those perfect right-angled forms defined by whole number ratios, millennia before the Greek philosopher was born. A triangle with sides measuring 3, 4, and 5 units, for instance, guarantees a perfect 90-degree angle. By stretching knotted ropes between stakes, they could quickly and accurately lay out these perfect angles and alignments on a colossal scale. This rope and peg methodology was their drafting board, transforming empty landscapes into precise geometric templates. They formed not only circles but complex ellipses and even subtle egg-shaped rings, each form carrying its own symbolic weight. This practical toolkit of chords, poles, and measures was the engine that brought their cosmic blueprints to life. But what were the primary shapes they were so desperate to etch into the world? And what did each one truly mean stand within a perfect stone circle at dawn on the longest day of the year? The first sliver of sun breaks the horizon, its light striking a single, solitary heel stone before flooding the enclosed space with a sudden, brilliant warmth. This was no happy accident. It was the culmination of a deep, generational understanding of the cosmos, etched in stone. The circle itself is the heart of this language. Its endless, unbroken line represented eternity, the cycle of the seasons, and the very dome of the heavens. It created a container for the sacred, a place physically and symbolically set apart from the ordinary world. This shape is a universal constant, appearing across continents and cultures, but its construction required more than just symbolic meaning. It demanded astronomical precision. At sites like Stonehenge, key stones are aligned with solstice sunrises and sunsets, and even with the moon's more complex 18.6-year cycle, known as a lunar standstill. As archaeoastronomer Clive Ruggles has demonstrated, achieving these alignments was not a one-time event. It required patient, meticulous observation passed down through generations, a living science encoded in landscape and memory. Beyond its cosmic dialogue, the circle served a powerful social function. Inside its boundary, there is no inherent front or back, no single focal point of power. The community gathered within it did so as a unified whole, standing together under a shared celestial order. This geometric form subtly reinforced equality and collective identity. Why did this specific shape hold such universal appeal for our ancestors? Its perfect, encompassing nature seems to answer a deep human need for unity and connection. Yet this celestial ideal of the circle could not exist in isolation. It required a counterpart, an anchor in the tangible world of the Earth, leading us to its powerful geometric partner, the square. While the circle reached for the heavens, another shape anchored these sacred sites firmly to the Earth. The square and its rectangular form stand as a testament to stability, order, and the terrestrial power of human rulers. Where the circle spoke of celestial cycles, the square mapped the tangible world, its four sides often aligned with the four cardinal directions. To orient a temple or a platform in this way was to align human endeavor with the fundamental, stable order of the cosmos itself. This geometry created territories of authority, demarcating the domain of a chieftain or a priest-king. Consider the massive Maltese temples, their facades curved and inviting, yet built upon a fundamentally rectilinear plan. Inside, the space unfolds in a series of chambers, creating a clear sense of procession and hierarchy. You do not stand together in a unified circle here. You are guided along a path, moving toward a central, powerful focal point. This form conveyed a different kind of authority, not the cyclical power of the skies, but the enduring, administrative power of the land and its human stewards. This inherent tension and partnership between the celestial circle and the earthly square gave rise to one of history's most profound geometric quests, the challenge to square the circle. This was not merely a mathematical puzzle, but a spiritual endeavor to symbolically unite the heavens and the earth, the infinite and the finite, within a single, perfect form. This profound challenge to unite the circle of the heavens with the square of the earth was the ultimate goal of the geometry of power. How could our ancestors express the perfect, boundless cosmos and the measured, ordered world of humanity within a single, sacred space? The ancient quest to square the circle was not a failure of mathematics, but a triumph of symbolic thought. It represented the sacred duty of a ruler or a priestly class to act as a bridge, to bring celestial harmony down to the human community. While a perfect geometric solution is impossible, the powerful approximations they achieved are etched into the very stones they left behind. We see this in sites where a circular outer bank or ditch perfectly encompasses a square or rectangular inner setting of stones. This architectural arrangement is a clear diagram of authority, a model of the universe where the spiritual realm, represented by the circle, envelops and gives meaning to the structured society within the square. The knowledge required to create these forms was profound, rooted in ratios that would have seemed magical. To even approach this synthesis, builders relied on numbers like pi, the constant of the circle, and the square root of 2, the key to doubling a square's area. Possessing this knowledge was a source of immense power, a divine secret that separated the elite from the common person. It was proof that they alone could interpret the blueprint of creation itself. This drive to fuse celestial and terrestrial power through geometry inevitably led to the discovery of a ratio so perfect, so inherently beautiful, that it seemed to be the universe's own building code. This proportion, known as the golden ratio, appears as a fundamental pattern throughout the natural world. You can find it in the elegant spiral of a sunflower's seeds, the curve of a nautilus shell, and even the branching of trees. Mathematically, it is called phi, a number approximately equal to 1.618. It is defined by a unique and perfectly balanced relationship. If you take a line and divide it into 2 parts, the ratio of the entire line to the larger segment is exactly the same as the ratio of the larger segment to the smaller one. This creates a self-replicating harmony that seems to resonate with our very perception of beauty. Ancient architects, from the builders of the Parthenon in Greece to the master masons of the Great Pyramid in Egypt, are widely believed to have incorporated this ratio into their designs. They were not just building shelters, they were seeking to construct forms that felt inherently right, that mirrored the beautiful and efficient patterns they observed in the living world. By embedding phi into their work, they attempted to infuse their temples and tombs with the same organic balance found in an unfolding leaf or a swirling galaxy. This would have given their structures a profound sense of authority, as if they were not merely human creations, but extensions of a universal order. While scholars often debate the specific and intentional use of the golden ratio at prehistoric sites like Stonehenge, the underlying principle is undeniable. These megalithic builders were clearly engaged in a deep and purposeful search for ideal proportions, for the mathematical keys that would link their sacred spaces directly to the cosmos. This relentless search for a perfect governing proportion is what ultimately connects the intuitive geometry of the circle and the square to another, even more mysterious mathematical constant. That same rope used to trace a circle on the ground held a secret number within its simple arc. By walking the rope's length around a central point, the builder was not just making a shape, he was activating a fundamental law of the universe. The ratio we call pi, the constant relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter, was not a calculated formula for them but a tangible, physical reality. Stretch a rope to form a radius, then walk its length around the circle 3 full times plus a little bit more, and you complete the perfect loop. This practical, embodied knowledge is etched into monuments across the ancient world. At Stonehenge, for instance, the dimensions of the Great Sarsen Circle reveal a perimeter that is pi times its diameter. This was empirical geometry in its purest form, a hands-on discovery that allowed for the creation of vast, near-perfect rings of stone. The incorporation of this irrational, transcendental number into permanent architecture suggests something profound. These structures were not just ceremonial spaces, they were intended as frozen diagrams of a cosmic mathematics, a permanent expression of a universal truth accessible through simple materials and meticulous observation. This deep, practical familiarity with the circle and its hidden constant pi naturally provided the foundation for an even more sophisticated geometric toolkit. The same builders who mastered the circle were also laying out perfect right-angled triangles across the landscape with nothing more than a knotted rope. Those massive, towering trilithons at Stonehenge are more than just gateways. They are isosceles triangles carved from solid rock. Each one frames the sky, channeling lines of sight and immense structural weight directly toward the sacred center of the circle. This was a masterful application of triangular geometry, a form that offered both immense physical strength and profound symbolic meaning. Long before the Greek philosopher Pythagoras formalized his famous theorem, these ancient builders were using the very same principles as everyday tools. They understood that a triangle with sides in the simple, whole number ratio of 3, 4, and 5 would always produce a perfect 90-degree angle. A knotted rope divided into 12 equal segments could be stretched between stakes placed at the 3, 4, and 5 marks. Instantly, they had a perfectly square corner, a reliable foundation for aligning entire monuments across vast landscapes. This practical knowledge was a cornerstone of a widespread megalithic science. Researchers like Alexander Thom meticulously surveyed hundreds of sites and found evidence of these Pythagorean triples, these perfect right-angled triangles, used again and again from one region to the next. This was not a coincidence, it was a shared technical standard. The triangle's inherent Chinese letter, its ability to point and direct energy, made it a natural symbol of ascent, of a connection between the earthly realm and the world above. Its 3 sides could represent countless trinities, from the phases of the moon to the fundamental cycles of life itself. But the true genius of this geometric language is revealed not in these simple shapes alone, but in the breathtaking complexity that emerges when circles, squares, and triangles are woven together into a single, unified design. The most potent geometric key was hidden within a 5-pointed star. This shape, the pentagram, represents a dramatic leap in complexity, a departure from the foundational circles, and squares into a realm of intricate cosmic symbolism. While a circle is simple to mark with a rope, dividing its circumference into 5 equal parts to create a pentagon or a star requires a far more sophisticated geometric procedure. The very presence of 5-fold symmetry in prehistoric art and potential site layouts is a tantalizing clue. It suggests that the intellectual elite of these ancient societies possessed a mathematical toolkit capable of handling abstract, irrational proportions. This was geometry moving from the practical world of measurement into the esoteric world of sacred meaning. The pentagram was profoundly linked to the planet Venus and its 8-year cycle in the sky, a cycle of death and rebirth that mirrored the concepts of life and regeneration on Earth. In many traditions, the 5 points came to symbolize the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, or the 5 limbs of the human form: arms, legs, and head. The star thus became a powerful symbol of the microcosm and macrocosm, a single shape that encapsulated both the human being and the entire ordered universe. Its geometric power is amplified by a hidden secret. The lines of a perfectly drawn pentagram divide each other in the golden ratio, phi. This means that the knowledge required to construct a pentagram inherently included an understanding of this most beautiful and mysterious proportion. While clear pentagonal layouts of massive stones are rare, the geometric principles were almost certainly within their grasp. A builder who could reliably generate a pentagon held the key to phi, and with it, the ability to design structures that resonated with the fundamental patterns of life itself. This mastery of 5-fold symmetry points to an inner circle of knowledge, a priestly class who guarded these complex geometric secrets as a source of their ultimate authority. Their vision was not limited to the earthly plane, for these intricate patterns inscribed upon the ground were often direct reflections of a grander design, a celestial map written in the stars. The slow drift of the stars was not a mystery to them, but a rhythm to be recorded. Across generations, priestly observers meticulously tracked the subtle wobble in Earth's axis, a cycle known as the precession of the equinoxes that unfolds over 26,000 years. They marked this grand cosmic clock not on parchment, but with stone, embedding its patient tempo directly into the landscape. This field of study, astroarchaeology, reveals how these ancient structures were precisely calibrated to the heavens. At Newgrange in Ireland, a masterpiece of megalithic engineering, a narrow roof box was constructed above the entrance for just a few days around the winter solstice. As the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, a single, sharp beam of sunlight travels up this long passageway to illuminate the deepest, darkest chamber within. This was no simple light show. It was a profound celestial event made tangible, a moment where the power of the reborn sun was physically drawn into the heart of the ancestral tomb. These alignments served as a highly accurate agricultural calendar, signaling the time to plant and to harvest, governing the very cycle of life and sustenance for the community. But their function ran far deeper than practicality. The dramatic reappearance of the sun deep within a burial mound would have powerfully reinforced a spiritual narrative of rebirth and the eternal cycle of life, a story enacted by the cosmos itself. For the people witnessing this event, it was undeniable proof that their leaders held a unique and privileged dialogue with the celestial powers. This ability to predict and orchestrate such a spectacle cemented the authority of the ruling class, demonstrating that their power was not merely of this world, but sanctioned by the heavens. This celestial mirroring reveals that the geometry of power was a dynamic, living system. It was not frozen in stone, but moved with the sun, the moon, and the stars, its meaning and influence pulsing in time with the great cycles of the cosmos. And this cosmic connection was intrinsically woven into the very placement of these monuments, anchoring their celestial power at specific, potent points across the land. Beneath the soil we walk upon, some traditions speak of a deep and subtle current, a flow of energy that courses through the living body of the earth itself. This hypothetical force, sometimes called telluric energy, was believed by ancient geomancers to pulse along specific pathways, much like the meridians in the human body. The placement of a megalithic monument was never a random act. It was a deliberate choice to build at a point where this terrestrial power was thought to be most concentrated, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. By raising their stones at these potent locations, the builders were not merely constructing a temple, they were plugging into the very life force of the planet, transforming a natural power node into a controlled center of spiritual and social authority. This intricate art of geomancy sought to align human structures with the invisible energies of the landscape, creating a perfect resonance between architecture and the earth. The concept of ley lines extends this idea to a breathtaking scale. These are said to be straight alignments, often stretching for miles, that connect ancient sacred sites, burial mounds, old churches built on pagan grounds, and prominent natural landmarks. The suggestion is of a vast, invisible grid laid over the entire continent, a planned geometry of immense ambition. While mainstream archaeology often views these lines with skepticism, attributing alignments to chance or to practical factors like trade routes and line-of-sight pathways, the sheer number of potential connections is compelling. Whether these lines charted spiritual pilgrimage routes, acted as astronomical sightlines, or marked the flow of Earth energies, their potential existence implies a coordinated, long-term vision. It suggests that scattered communities shared a common understanding of the land as a sacred text, and that a ruling class of knowledge keepers could read this text. They were not just building individual structures, they were weaving the entire landscape into a single, empowered diagram. This practice transformed rolling hills, river valleys, and mountain peaks into a living map of cosmic and terrestrial power, a map whose secrets were controlled by the few who understood its geometric language. This profound desire to harness the hidden forces of the world could not stop at the placement of stones alone. It had to extend into the very substance of the monuments themselves. The very substance of the stones themselves was a critical component of their power. Transporting a single 100-ton bluestone from the Preseli Hills in Wales to the Salisbury Plain in England was a logistical feat of staggering ambition. This was a journey of over 150 miles across rivers, through forests, and over mountains. The sheer difficulty of this undertaking was precisely the point. The choice of a specific, distant stone added a profound layer of meaning, connecting the finished monument to a far-off, perhaps sacred, landscape. It demonstrated that the authority behind the construction could command not just local labor, but an entire network of resources and influence that stretched across the known world. The stone was not merely a material, it was a trophy, a physical piece of a distant power source brought home and integrated into the grand design. Once the stone arrived, the work of shaping began. Using nothing more than rounded stone molds, water, and abrasive sand, teams of workers would have spent countless hours dressing the surface. The rhythmic, percussive sound of stone on stone was a constant reminder of the effort underway. This was not quick work. It was a slow, deliberate, and immensely difficult process that transformed a rough, quarried block into a precisely shaped orthostat, a pillar ready to take its place in the geometric pattern. This technological mastery, this persistent will applied to an unyielding material, was a powerful display of control. The finished product, a smoothly shaped sarsen stone with perfectly carved mortise and tenon joints, was far more than a building block. It was a permanent testament to the social order that could organize, feed, and direct such a massive human effort over generations. The geometry of the circle and the triangle was given immense physical weight and presence through this backbreaking labor, making an abstract concept of power utterly undeniable to anyone who stood in its shadow. And within that completed stone circle, this material mastery revealed another, more subtle layer of influence through the very air that surrounded you. The silence within a sealed stone chamber is not truly silent at all. It holds a latent power waiting for a single voice to bring it to life. When a chant or a drumbeat resonates inside a corbelled tomb like Newgrange, the sound waves do not simply fade away. They bounce from hard, carefully placed stone surfaces, amplifying and blending into a sustained, otherworldly echo. This is not an accident of architecture, it is sonic geometry in its most potent form. Modern acoustic studies have mapped these ancient spaces and discovered something remarkable. Many chambers are tuned, their dimensions causing them to resonate at specific, low frequencies, often close to the range of a deep male voice or a large ritual drum. These frequencies are known to affect the human body, potentially altering brainwave patterns and inducing states of deep relaxation or heightened awareness. The builders were not just stacking stones for visual effect, they were constructing giant musical instruments. Imagine standing in that darkened space, surrounded by a thunderous, enveloping hum that seems to come from the stones themselves. For a participant in a ritual, this experience would be overwhelming proof that the spiritual leaders could command the very air around them. They could make the invisible forces of the sacred space tangible and audible. This control over sound became a form of magic, a direct manipulation of consciousness that reinforced their mystical authority. The architecture itself was an active participant in the ceremony, using sonic geometry to shape not just space, but the inner experience of every person within it. This multi-sensory approach to power, blending visual alignment with acoustic manipulation, reveals a sophisticated understanding of human perception. It was a holistic system designed to convince, to awe, and to unite a community under a shared, unforgettable experience. But such a complex and coordinated effort could not exist without a supporting structure of its own, a societal engine capable of turning these grand geometric visions into enduring stone. You can feel the social geometry of these sites long before you understand it. Walk toward a great henge monument, and the first thing you encounter is not the sacred center, but a massive outer bank and a deep ditch. This is where the general populace would have gathered during great ceremonies, standing on the sloping earthworks, looking inward. Their view of the central rituals would have been partial, distant, framed by the very architecture that separated them from the heart of the action. This was not an accident of design, it was the design itself. The spatial organization of these complexes was a direct and physical map of the social order. The further inward you progressed, the more exclusive the space became. Passing through a single, narrow entrance in the outer earthworks, you would then walk along a carefully defined processional avenue, your movement channeled and controlled. Finally, you might approach the inner circle of towering stones, a space accessible only to the priestly elite or the ruling class. This journey from the outside in was a powerful psychological experience, a physical acting out of the social hierarchy. With every step, you were reminded of your place. The architecture itself was a silent, permanent enforcer of the rules, making social stratification feel as natural and unchangeable as the landscape. This principle of using architecture to choreograph power is visible across the ancient world. Consider the great Maltese temples, where you move from a monumental forecourt through a series of increasingly narrow and complex chambers. Or the massive platform mounds of North America, where ascending each new level brought you closer to the leaders who resided at the summit. These structures were not just buildings, they were machines for manufacturing consent, normalizing hierarchy through the simple, inescapable experience of moving through space. The stones were not merely arranged for celestial observation, they were arranged to observe and direct the human community, ensuring that everyone knew their role in the grand cosmic diagram. Standing in the center of Stonehenge, you are surrounded by a living diagram of celestial and earthly power. The arrangement is not a single idea but a conversation in stone, built and rebuilt over centuries. The outer circular bank and ditch, the earliest phase, established a sacred boundary, a simple yet profound declaration of a place set apart. Later generations transformed this space, raising the iconic Sarsen Circle and its inner horseshoe of towering trilithons. These massive gateways are not just uprights and lintels, they are isosceles triangles framing the sky and channeling all attention inward. This concentric design of sarsens and the smaller bluestones creates a nested geometry, a series of thresholds that guide both the eye and the body toward the heart of the ceremony. The entire structure is a palimpsest, where each new layer of construction added another dimension to its geometric language. The builders encoded solar and lunar alignments into the very bones of the monument, ensuring the solstice sun would dramatically announce its arrival. But their vision extended beyond the circle itself. The rectangle formed by the 4 station stones, positioned just inside the bank, is a masterpiece of practical geometry. Its dimensions form a perfect Pythagorean triangle, a 5-12-13 right-angled triangle laid out on a colossal scale. This demonstrates that the architects possessed and applied sophisticated mathematical knowledge to organize the entire landscape. The transportation of the bluestones from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of over 150 miles, infused the site with a powerful, non-local essence. These stones were more than building material, They were physical connections to a distant, sacred territory, their very presence a testament to the far-reaching influence of the ruling authority. This geometric mastery was not confined to the stone circle alone. The avenue, a processional pathway leading to the river Avon, and the massive circular henge at Durrington Walls nearby suggest a vast ceremonial complex. This entire terrain was planned with an overarching logic, weaving individual sites into a single, empowered diagram of spiritual and political control. Stonehenge stands as the ultimate expression of a centuries-long project to harness cosmic principles and channel them into a permanent center of human authority. For a different perspective on this geometric language, we travel to the sun-drenched islands of Malta. The massive stones of Hagakim do not form a simple ring, but curve inward to create a series of interconnected cloverleaf chambers. This is the trefoil plan, a labyrinthine design that feels less like a building and more like a living organism carved from the bedrock. These Maltese temples are among the oldest free-standing structures on Earth, and their geometry is a unique departure from the circles and squares of the north. Their walls sweep in elegant ellipses and complex concave curves, creating an organic, almost cellular structure that many researchers believe symbolizes the body of a mother goddess. To walk through these spaces is to move through a symbolic womb of the Earth itself, a physical expression of a belief system centered on fertility, regeneration, and the source of all life. This was a deeply localized adaptation of the geometry of power, tailored to the island's specific spiritual vision. The architectural genius extends to the very ceiling. The builders used a technique called corbelling, layering stones in ever-decreasing circles until the roof was sealed, creating a dark, enclosed sanctuary. These were not open-air circles, but intimate, enclosed spaces that focused energy inward. Yet they were also precisely aligned with the cosmos. Key doorways and apertures in temples like Mnajdra are oriented to frame the rising sun on the solstices and equinoxes, allowing specific beams of light to penetrate the deep interior at these sacred times. This fusion of an earthy, organic ground plan with celestial alignment is what makes these temples so profound. The geometry here was not about imposing a rigid order on the landscape, but about harmonizing architectural form with a deeply held belief in a nurturing, divine feminine power. It demonstrates how the universal language of sacred geometry could be fluently spoken with a distinct local accent, creating a center of authority that felt both cosmic and intimately connected to the very soil of Malta. This sophisticated architectural tradition invites us to look for other regional dialects of this geometric language, leading us from the sun-baked Mediterranean to the windswept and desolate moors of northern Scotland. The wind whispers a different geometric language across the desolate moors of the Isle of Lewis. Here at Callanish, the stones do not form a simple circle, but reach out like arms into the landscape, creating a stark, cross-shaped pattern against the vast Scottish sky. This is a complex astronomical instrument carved from the living rock, a central stone circle, a chambered tomb at its very heart, and long, radiating avenues of standing stones define a site of profound celestial observation. The primary axis of this stone cross is precisely aligned to the southern moonset, but its true genius lies in tracking a much grander, more patient rhythm. Key stones are positioned to mark the extreme northern and southern limits of the moon as it completes its slow 18.6-year cycle, known as a lunar standstill. This is not a geometry of days or seasons, but of generations. The unique cruciform shape could be a symbolic unification of the four cardinal directions, a schematic of the cosmos itself, or perhaps a physical representation of a world tree connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. The integration of the tomb within the circle's center is the masterstroke, a powerful architectural fusion. It permanently entwines the cyclical geometry of the heavens with the enduring presence of the ancestors. This was more than a calendar, it was a statement of eternal lineage, a claim that the power of the ruling lineage was as constant and predictable as the moon's slow dance. Callanish teaches us that the geometry of power was not always about immediate solar drama. It could also be a patient, generational project to map deep time itself, anchoring a community's identity to the unwavering clockwork of the cosmos. From these wind-swept northern stones, our journey follows this ancient geometric language to its most remote and daring expression, far out across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The geometric language of power echoes across the Pacific, spoken in a stark and formidable dialect. On the island of Pohnpei, the ruined city of Nan Madol rises from a shallow lagoon, a labyrinth of silent canals and 92 artificial islets. Here, the geometry is not one of celestial circles but of an overwhelming orthogonal grid, a rigid network of waterways and platforms built entirely by human hands. This was the seat of the Saudeleur dynasty, and their authority was expressed through a staggering logistical feat: the total domination of a mangrove swamp and the sea itself. The very foundation of the city is a declaration of control, transforming a fluid, natural environment into a fixed and artificial landscape of power. To reach the center of this aquatic complex was to navigate a maze of man-made channels, each turn reinforcing the absolute command of the rulers who had literally reshaped the world. The building technique itself was designed to intimidate. Colossal basalt logs, quarried from the other side of the island, were crisscrossed and stacked like firewood to form walls that tower nearly 25 feet high. These prismatic columns, weighing many tons each, were fitted together with astonishing precision, creating a powerful, rhythmic pattern of alternating headers and stretchers. The visual effect is one of immense, impenetrable stability, a geometric order imposed upon the chaotic beauty of nature. This was not architecture that whispered of cosmic harmony. It shouted about territorial control and the management of an entire society's labor and resources. The ruling elite, isolated on their specially constructed platforms, were physically separated from the common population by water and these formidable walls. This deliberate isolation was a geometric strategy, using the city's own layout to create an aura of unapproachable majesty. The power of Nan Madol was rooted not in the stars above, but in the absolute mastery of the earth and sea below, a theme of environmental control that finds a powerful parallel in the ancient landscapes of the Americas. The geometry of power was not exclusive to stone. Across the ocean, in the sweltering bayous of Louisiana, an ancient society reshaped the very earth itself into a symbol of staggering ambition. Poverty Point rises from the flat landscape not as a structure of quarried rock, but as a colossal sculpture of soil, a complex of concentric, C-shaped ridges and towering mounds built by hunter-gatherers over 3,000 years ago. This site shatters a long-held assumption that such sophisticated geometric planning could only emerge from settled, agricultural civilizations with granaries and kings. Here, the builders were people who lived by hunting, fishing, and gathering, yet they coordinated a project of breathtaking scale. Imagine the sheer effort of moving nearly 2 million cubic meters of earth by hand, using only woven baskets. This was not a haphazard piling of dirt. Every load was placed according to a grand, preconceived design. The result is a vast, bird-shaped complex, its 6 nested ridges opening toward the nearby river, with a massive central mound standing as its focal point. The entire layout is precisely aligned to solar meridians, anchoring this earthen diagram to the path of the sun. This was a society that could mobilize its people not for survival alone, but for a vision that would outlast generations. The power embodied here is not that of a remote priesthood commanding from a stone temple, but the raw, communal authority of social coordination. The very act of building this place, of countless individuals contributing to a single geometric masterpiece, would have forged an unbreakable sense of shared identity and purpose. Poverty Point stands as a powerful testament that the drive to encode cosmic order and social authority into the landscape is a fundamental human impulse, one that can flourish even without the trappings of cities or farms. From the stone rings of Europe to the earthen ridges of North America, a common geometric language begins to emerge, connecting these distant cultures in a shared pursuit of meaning and control. A world map reveals a startling pattern, a silent network of stone circles, aligned platforms, and geometric earthworks spanning every continent. From the windswept moors of Britain to the highlands of Peru, from the jungles of India to the islands of Japan, cultures separated by vast oceans and millennia arrived at a strikingly similar architectural vocabulary. This is not the story of a single, lost civilization seeding the globe, but something far more profound. It is the story of a shared human impulse, a deep-seated need to impose a sacred order upon the chaos of the natural world using the universal language of shape and number. The circle, with its endless unifying line, appears again and again as a symbol of the heavens. The square and the cardinal cross, oriented to the four directions, ground this celestial vision firmly to the earth. These are not arbitrary choices. They are the fundamental geometries that our ancestors observed in the dome of the sky and the stable horizon, a universal experience that transcended culture and creed. To build in these forms was to align human society with the perceived blueprint of the cosmos itself. How could such distant and disconnected societies, with no possible means of communication, all converge on the same core principles of sacred design? The answer may lie not in shared blueprints, but in a shared human mind. The human brain is hardwired to seek patterns, to find symmetry, and to derive comfort from predictable, repeating forms. When a society grows beyond a small, nomadic band, this innate preference for order finds its ultimate expression in the landscape. The geometry of power becomes a psychological tool, a way to visually and physically demonstrate that a new, complex social order is as natural and inevitable as the rising sun. This drive to create large-scale, enduring monuments using sophisticated mathematics appears to be a fundamental threshold in human history. It marks the moment when a community decides to invest generations of labor into a permanent statement of its identity and beliefs. The precise methods might differ, a knotted rope in one land, a system of sighting poles in another, but the underlying goal is the same: to harness the perceived power of cosmic harmony and channel it into a center of social and spiritual authority. This comparative view forces a dramatic reassessment of our prehistoric past. It suggests that the leap to complex society was not solely about agriculture or technology, but about a collective leap of imagination, a shared vision that could be rendered in stone and earth. These monuments stand as a testament to a universal human genius, a capacity for abstract thought and coordinated action that blossomed independently across the globe, leaving behind a common geometric signature written upon the face of the earth. These grand narratives of lost continents and star visitors can feel deeply alluring, offering a simple, dramatic answer to the profound mystery of the stones. Yet this very allure presents a hidden cost, subtly diminishing the breathtaking reality of human achievement. The true story is not one of advanced technology given to primitive people, but of intelligence, observation, and a relentless will forged over generations. To suggest that our ancestors required outside help to build these sites is to ignore the mountain of archaeological evidence for their sophisticated capabilities. We have found their stone tools, their quarry sites, and the experimental archaeology that proves these methods work. We have meticulously surveyed the geometric principles they used, principles that are elegant in their simplicity and power. The real marvel is not a hypothetical crystal power source, but the tangible, social power required to organize a workforce, to pass precise knowledge from one generation to the next, and to sustain a vision that would outlast any single lifetime. This was not magic, it was a different kind of genius, one rooted in a deep, intimate relationship with the natural world and its patterns. By stripping away the speculative layers of ancient astronauts and sunken continents, we do not make these sites less mysterious. We make them profoundly human. We grant the builders the dignity of their own intellect and perseverance. We open ourselves to a more authentic connection with their world, a world where the greatest power was not imported from the stars, but cultivated from the human spirit and etched into the enduring stone. This shift in perspective allows us to see these monuments not as abandoned relics of a forgotten help, but as active monuments to what people can accomplish when they unite around a shared cosmic vision. The principles that gave form to Stonehenge and Haga Kim were far too potent to be forgotten. They simply found new vessels. Centuries later, in the soaring naves of Gothic cathedrals, the same ancient language was spoken, translated into stone and stained glass. The master builders of the Middle Ages, often organized into guilds that guarded their geometric secrets, used the very same tools. With compass and square, they laid out floor plans based on the square and the circle, and they crowned their structures with immense rose windows whose intricate tracery is a direct descendant of the megalithic stone circle. These were not just decorative elements, they were cosmic diagrams designed to flood the interior with a divine, colored light that transformed the space into a model of the heavenly Jerusalem. This was the geometry of power reborn, now serving a new spiritual authority but rooted in the same timeless principles of harmony and proportion. This secret river of knowledge flowed through history, often underground. It was carried by philosophical schools and later by esoteric traditions and secret societies. The Freemasons, for instance, adopted the working tools of the medieval stonemason, the compass, the square, and the plumb line, as profound symbols for building a moral and ethical life. Their lodges became symbolic representations of the universe, their floors a checkered pattern of light and dark squares representing the dualistic nature of the world, a concept that echoes the ancient interplay between the celestial circle and the earthly square. This was not a mere historical curiosity. It was a living transmission, a way of preserving and teaching a worldview in which specific shapes and mathematical ratios held the key to understanding both the cosmos and the human soul. Why does this specific language of form persist with such tenacity across millennia? It seems to answer a deep, perhaps innate, human yearning for an ordered universe, a visual and mathematical anchor in the chaos of existence. This enduring legacy demonstrates that the geometry of power is not a relic, but a continuous thread woven through the fabric of human history, continually rediscovered and reinterpreted by each new age. And this raises a compelling question for our own time. A world dominated by digital screens and algorithmic code, does this ancient language of stone and spirit still hold any power over us? The same geometric language that once directed celestial forces now governs the flow of our daily lives. Look at the grand design of a city like Washington, D.C. Its streets radiate from central points in a web of circles and triangles, creating a powerful geometric grid overlaid with symbolic avenues. These patterns, deeply influenced by Masonic principles of sacred geometry, are far more than a practical street plan. They are a modern statement of national order and ideological authority, a physical diagram of a political system. This is not an isolated example. Consider the towering corporate headquarters that define our skylines. Their immense scale and rigid, rectilinear forms are carefully calculated to project an image of unshakable stability and control. The geometry of power has simply traded stone for steel and glass, its purpose remarkably unchanged. Urban planners wield this language with precision, using geometric layouts to manage the movement of millions. Long, straight boulevards can channel traffic efficiently, while complex roundabouts and cul-de-sacs can subtly discourage through traffic, controlling the very rhythm of a neighborhood. This is environmental psychology in action, a formalized study of what the megalithic builders knew instinctively, that the shape of a space directly shapes human behavior and emotion. A vast, soaring atrium in a public building can inspire awe and a sense of communal possibility. Conversely, a labyrinthine office layout with low ceilings and uniform corridors might be designed to maximize productivity through anonymity and control. When you understand this ancient concept, your perception of the city shifts. You begin to see the invisible lines of force etched into the urban landscape, how a park is positioned, how a government building is set back from the street, how a financial district is isolated. These are not random aesthetic choices. They are deliberate spatial constructions of power intended to guide, influence, and at times manage the populace. This awareness is a form of literacy, allowing you to read the hidden messages in the world you navigate every day. It is the first step toward consciously choosing how you interact with these spaces, and ultimately, toward imagining new geometries that might serve a different, more human-centered kind of authority. That feeling of awe inside a cathedral or the comfort of a small room is the silent power of geometry working upon your mind. These ancient builders were not just astronomers and engineers, they were the first psychologists of space. They understood intuitively that the forms they carved into the landscape would carve equally deep impressions into the human psyche. A towering, vertical monolith does not simply mark a spot. It pulls your gaze and your spirit upward, evoking a sense of aspiration and a connection to something greater than yourself. In contrast, a long, low horizontal stone or a massive earthwork bank feels immovable, projecting an image of eternal stability and rest. The very shape of the space told you how to feel before a single word was spoken. This psychological manipulation was their most sophisticated tool. A perfect stone circle creates a container for community. With no beginning and no end, it fosters a powerful sense of unity and shared experience, drawing everyone into a collective whole. But then, contrast that with the experience of walking a long, processional avenue leading to a site. Your movement is channeled, your journey is linear and directed, creating a palpable sense of progression toward a singular, powerful goal. This architectural choreography builds anticipation and reinforces a clear hierarchy, subtly teaching you your place in the order of things long before you reach the sacred center. Why does a low, confined passageway into a tomb feel so solemn and heavy? It compresses your world, focusing your attention inward and preparing you for an encounter with the sacred or the ancestral. Emerging from that tight space into a vast, open circle under the sky would have felt like a rebirth, a dramatic emotional release engineered by the geometry itself. These sites were active machines for manufacturing specific states of consciousness. The combination of overwhelming scale, precise celestial alignment, and resonant acoustics created a total sensory experience that could bypass critical thought and speak directly to the subconscious. For a participant in a ritual, this was not a metaphor, it was a reality. The trembling in the earth from 100 feet stamping in unison, the thunderous echo in a stone chamber, the sudden beam of solstice light piercing the gloom, these were not mere symbols, they were felt truth. This engineered awe was the bedrock of their authority. It transformed abstract beliefs about the cosmos into visceral, unforgettable experiences, convincing people that their leaders truly could commune with the forces that governed the world. This profound understanding of the human spirit, etched in stone, is their most enduring legacy. Our world of screens and algorithms can feel profoundly disconnected from the living pulse of the earth. The silent stones offer a vital antidote, a tangible link to a world view where humanity was not separate from nature, but an active participant in a geometric cosmos. This lost science matters not as a historical curiosity, but as a crucial mirror for our own time. It reminds us that true knowledge was once embodied, learned through the feel of a taut rope, the sight of a star rising over a stone, and the communal effort of moving earth and rock. This was a mathematics not of abstract equations on a page, but of direct physical engagement with the patterns of the world. It challenges our linear narrative of progress, revealing that ancient cultures possessed a profound, integrated wisdom that our most advanced instruments are only now helping us to measure and confirm. Their achievements force us to look at indigenous knowledge systems with a new and profound respect, recognizing them not as primitive superstition, but as sophisticated, time-tested sciences of place and spirit. Reclaiming this perspective can fundamentally reshape our own future. Imagine an architecture that doesn't just occupy space, but actively harmonizes with it, using proportion and placement to nourish human well-being rather than just maximize efficiency. Consider city planning that fosters genuine community through circular gathering spaces, echoing the ancient henges, instead of isolating people in rectilinear grids. This knowledge even invites a more meaningful personal spirituality, one grounded in the observable rhythms of the cosmos and a felt connection to the land. The ultimate lesson of the megaliths is one of synthesis, a call to weave our technological prowess back into the timeless tapestry of geometric harmony, creating a world that is not just smart but truly wise. This journey through stone and earth uncovers a fundamental truth about human civilization. Our ancestors did not merely build structures, they wove the very fabric of reality into the landscape, using geometry as their thread. The perfect circle was their map of the heavens, the stable square their anchor to the earth, and the dynamic triangle their bridge between the two. This was a unified science, one that saw no separation between the practical need for a calendar and the spiritual yearning for connection. It was a toolkit for manifesting order from chaos, for channeling the perceived harmony of the cosmos into the heart of human society. The legacy of this ancient language is not confined to history books. It lives on in the very way we design our world today, in the grand city plans and the towering buildings that command our skylines. These forms continue to influence how we feel, how we gather, and how we perceive authority. As you move through your own life, pause for a moment. Look at the spaces you inhabit, the paths you walk daily. Can you sense the subtle lines of force, the quiet geometry that guides your steps and shapes your experience? This awareness is a key, allowing you to read the hidden messages etched into our modern world. If this exploration of humanity's oldest architectural language has sparked your curiosity, I would love to hear your reflections in the comments. And for more journeys into the world's great historical mysteries, be sure to subscribe.